That's amazing. Okay.
Why? Where they about it?
Why don't you take your seats?
Okay.
Yeah, we're going to start without theatre.
Okay. Come. ကျွန်တော်လာတာမရဘူးကျွန်တော်ဘောလုံးပြန်လုံးနေနေနေတာကောင်းမှုတော့မတက်ပါဘူးအခုဒီကောင်မွေးနေပုံမှာအဲ့ဒီကဟို MAG မှာက Make America Great Again Great Again Yes, mommy. Okay, I will. We'll keep it. So what did you tell you that?
Okay. Good evening. Sorry, that was a bit loud. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, at the Foreign Correspondents Club of Thailand, and we are in a rare move live streaming this tonight, so if people have managed to hang in there without giving up on us, sorry viewers if you've just tuned in, we had to start a bit late due to late arrivals, and one of our speakers, Tozo Lat, has flown from Chiang Mai for this event, and there were delays in the flight, so apologies for starting late. I'm Gwen Robinson, former president and board member of the Foreign Correspondents Club of Thailand and editor-at-large of Nikkei Asia, and I think you all know first 2021. Of course, it's February the 3rd now, but Saturday was not good timing for us, so we went for Monday. And I'd just like to introduce, I think we're really lucky tonight to have an exceptional lineup of experts who have very different strengths and know a lot about Myanmar and have very different views, I think. So first I'd like to start at the end there. We're very fortunate to have Nyanta Morlin join us tonight. He is co-founder of Catalyst Economics, a Myanmar-focused research and consulting house, and he is founding principal of Anagat Initiatives, which facilitates dialogue and promotes understanding on Myanmar. Next to him is Tozo Lat, who is secretary of the Independent Press Council of Myanmar and has been many other things, including DVB Bureau Chief before, and Mizima Senior Advisor, many other things. Welcome, To. Thanks for the big dash from Chiang Mai. And next to him is Thinza Shunlei Yi, Executive Member of People's Goal, an organisation for Myanmar military defectors, and also a leading member of the Strategic Initiative Forum, focusing on the anti-sham election campaign. And she's going to talk a bit about that. And last but very not least is Kun Siasak Pwangketkiao, the former Thai Vice Minister for Foreign Affairs and now Chairman of the new Centre for Strategic Policy, which he can talk about a bit. I'm sure people who have followed Myanmar in Bangkok for a while know all about Kun Siasak's excellent work earlier on Thai-Myanmar policy, and he's going to give us more of an international perspective, I think. So to kick off, I don't think I really need to bring this audience up to date on the situation in Myanmar, but just a few key figures, and just to let you know, as you probably do, that the outrages and atrocities in Myanmar have not just not ceased, but they continue to escalate. I mean, just today there was news yesterday about aerial bombings of civilian IDP camps in, I believe in, which state was it today? Yes, and I think it was Chin or Sagaing, and direct bombing of civilians, killing at least 5 children and many others who are IDPs, just civilians sheltering in very crude camps. So, sorry, it was in Sagaing region, Kalay Township, 2 500-pound bombs just dropped directly on a village. So this is still going on every day, and we have figures from UN of 3.5 million internally displaced. That number would at least be, I mean, you talk to any of the big agencies inside Myanmar and they're saying it's way more than that. We could well be looking at 7 million people displaced, a lot of them just living in bushes with no access to proper food, water, children not vaccinated, kids not being educated. And this has now surpassed more than 10% of the population. It's pretty out of control, and it doesn't look like any end in sight, except for the question tonight, which we're posing to the panel, which is, you know, could the ground shift on Myanmar in 2025? There is one potential game changer, which everyone thinks is a joke, but it does put something out there that countries will have to respond to, and that is the plan for elections. We all think, I mean, most critics are not taking this seriously. We know that the SAC, the State Administration Council, probably controls about, 30% of territory probably in Myanmar, but they do still have the main population centres, which means a core of population in Yangon, Naypyidaw, Mandalay. They are still able to probably pull off some sort of half-baked election that might bring out maybe 30% of voters. We'll hear more from the experts here, and I'd like to start with Shunlei Yi, who has been looking at the anti-sham election campaign and efforts to unite the resistance. There are a lot of divisions in the resistance about whether to completely boycott the elections, urge people to ignore them and therefore put themselves at risk maybe of retaliation from vengeful local military or local administrations, as they will be identified as not voting. So I think these are some of the big questions about the election. Shunlei might also talk about a little, I think a neglected group which is an element of resistance, which are the military defectors. And a lot of defectors have been giving advice to People's Defence Forces and other fighters with the resistance, or even actively helping them. So I'd like to turn to you, Shunlei, to kick off, if I may. And please, yes, speak right into the microphone. Is that on? Yes.
Yes, I think. Yeah. Mingalaba, and good evening to everyone. It's such a pleasure and a privilege to be here, to be honest, and I also felt really overwhelmed by your presence today, because it's already been 4 years, and I was speaking on 2nd year anniversary on this panel, I remember, and I was thinking, where we have this kind of event when we turn 4, when we turn 5, where we have such kind of turnout again, now here you are, so I really appreciate each of your presence. It takes a lot of efforts to be here in busy Bangkok, so I really appreciate that. And thanks for FCCT and Gwen Robinson for organizing and putting us all together here. And also, this panel is special to us, to me, because it's commemorating the 4th anniversary of the Spring Revolution. There is a deliberate attempt that we frame the narrative around what's happening around us. Of course, the coup that happened in 2021 was the biggest nightmare you can imagine, especially for young stars who have many more years to live in Myanmar. You feel you are falling into a darkest, deepest pit. You feel no hope, no future, etc. But then, with the power of the people, we turn the nightmares into opportunity for a new future, new Myanmar, the revolution. I didn't expect, because I was mobilizing many young people in my whole life, and the biggest protest that I could organize in the past 10 years was like 300 people show up. But when the coup happened, when people resist, millions. And it's keep going and going. And I'm even overwhelmed, even as an activist, as a trained and seasoned activist, I'm amazed by the resilience of the people and the consistency of the people. The people keep striking, people keep organizing strikes. So yesterday was an anniversary day, and many people across the whole nation, from Kachin State to Tanindari region, they organized protests. In the biggest turnout in Tanindari, they have hundreds of people following them, and they were walking around different villages. They will be chanting, just like back in 2021. But people wouldn't know it because it was not in Yangon. It was not in big urban area. But as an activist ourselves, we know the risks that involved around organizing all this. And I appreciate and I respect and I salute all of these friends and comrades on the ground, keep organizing the civil resistance movement. And even in Yangon, yesterday, on the day before yesterday, on 1st February, the General Strike Committee that I'm a part of, the ground strike committee have organized a poster campaign where they put up and they say, all power to people. It was organized by a few group of young people still remain inside in Yangon. And they put this up and they have to quickly disappear. And we realized that one of the participants of this activity, he ran out from the hospital. His father is dying. But he said, we couldn't miss this. We couldn't miss the opportunity where all of us are watching us because it's anniversary. The international people are now looking at, oh, what's happening in Myanmar? And that young people felt like, I should give this a chance. This moment, I should grab this. And he ran out from the hospital. His father is dying. And the next morning, his father died. So this is the spirit of the young people in Yangon, hiding, going underground, but they're doing the best they can, risking everything. So I felt I'm reminded of the spirits, and I remember that the first few weeks where we have a lot of protests going on in 2021, and I was looking at all the different demands from different strike groups because we had different strike groups, and I was comparing what are the demands from this group, and I realized all of these strike groups not coordinated, but have a coordinated messages. That was so surprising. And all of them might have like 5 demands, 3 demands, 2 demands, but all of them have similar demands. And these demands become our objectives in the Federal Democracy Charter that is adopted by NUCC. So these 4 objectives that represent all of us, the strike groups and all of us, I'm reminded of these 4 objectives. The first is to abolish the dictatorship, including military and all forms of dictatorship. The second is to abolish 2008 Constitution. The third thing is to establish Federal Democracy Union. And the 4th objective is to form a civilian government. That is written in our Federal Democracy Charter. So we are still guided by it, and we are still reminded of this very core element of our revolution. So now, today, let's make this panel all about the election, because 2021 is the biggest highlight, and the junta has announced they are organizing election in 161 townships out of 330, and they are doing like in different parts, and we don't know anything more than that, but they say they're gonna organize this at the end of this year, and they have announced it in 2023 as well. In 2023, they didn't do it, and this anti-sham election committee I'm representing, We are a coalition with 16 members, including KNU, KNPP, and 3 political parties, and WLB, Women League of Burma. We have different civil society from Kachin to Tanindari strike groups, all these civil societies member, and I represent General Strike Committee, and I become a part of it, and I'm heading that anti-sham election commission since 2021. Since 2021, because we knew that they're gonna organize it. They have already announced that they organize it. So why we are opposing the elections? We just launched a position paper for second time on 1st February, but only in Burmese available now. In that election, it's 19 pages long. We have consulted with our members. We have met with all these different federal council. We have met with the armed group like BPLA, all these not related to NUG, and we listen to them and we consolidate all their comments and feedback why they don't like election. Because when we talk to our people, they say, why are you wasting your time talking about opposing election? They say, why are you coming and preaching us we should oppose the election? Because they say they are gonna do it, even you or without you. They say, don't waste your time telling us to oppose the election. They are already doing it. They wouldn't join the election because they say they already voted in 2020 already, and their passion, their authorities already objected by the junta, and that's exactly why they are in the revolution. But we are saying, are we sure? Do we have a strong why we are opposing the election? Do we have common understanding? So let's have a position paper. That's why we launched the position paper. In the position paper, we have 3 grounds why we are opposing the election organized by the junta. We call it sham election. First, we are opposing it because for the political reason. 2008 is an old road that we have walked through. We know it too well. We already tested it, we already used it, we already implemented it. We know it too well that it is not for us. That's the first thing. So political reason, we have a replaced constitution. It's already on the way. So in the Federal Democracy Charter, we have 12-step roadmaps. Already on 8th step, we are drafting federal constitution. The first, we have Federal Democracy Charter. So we are already on halfway through to our new nation with a new constitution. So 2008 constitution is also a damaged, it's a damaged road. It hurt us, it hurt who we really are, especially as a federal, we are supposed to be a federal nation, but constitution, that 2008 wasn't fitting with us. It was like we are in a very unfit cloak where we are hardly breathing. So we need to take it off and put up a new suit that will fit with us, who we really are. So that's the first reason why we are opposing from political perspective. And the second is from the legal perspective. The constitution, the election, the coup itself is unconstitutional. The coup perpetrator already violating the constitution. So, and they have violated the constitution already, and they have violated UDHR, they have violated the international electoral framework and all this. So from the legal grounds, the constitution itself or the election itself is not democratic, free, or fair. And there won't be one because the UEC that they have adopted cannot be free and fair, the Union Election Commissions. That will create more chaotic situations, that will create unlawful government, and that will create more diversifying the conflicts. So that's the second ground. And then third ground is we are opposing for justice. The junta is organizing election because they felt they are gonna organize the elections where they can be a government, where they can shake hands with us again, where they can have a reconciliations, where they can be free from everything. No, that revolution that we are undertaking is to end the impunity system, where we make sure perpetrators are held accountable. Wherever they violated, there must be consequences. And because we didn't have that system in place, the junta keep perpetrating again and again. After 8 years of Rohingya genocide, they dare to commit crimes against humanity again, and all this currently happening in the country. So to end the impunity system, for justice and accountability, we are opposing the election. We can't just let the junta leaders just go through like this. So these are the three main grounds. And as a ASCCC, we are also assessing the situations where this election will bring peace in Myanmar, because we're talking about peace and ending conflict, and we're not sure that will be the case. The 2008 constitution, even in a stable political situation in the last 10 years, it didn't end the conflict in Myanmar. It didn't even have Rohingya genocide in the middle of democratic transition. If we cannot stop the genocide under 2008 constitution, it cannot stop anything else. Meaning, we're gonna have more and more conflict. We are already having it. The 2008 constitution didn't stop the conflict in the past. There were refugees, there was a ceasefire agreement, of course, but there are also conflict, there are also refugees, there are also political prisoners under the 2008 constitution framework. So we are sure that 2008 constitution was not the answer for our problems, for our issues. So these are the main key points that we have written in the position paper, listening to all of our partner and members. And so that's one. And also the election is boycotted by the winning party. 88% of the winning party in 2020 elections, they boycotted the election. Only 11% of the union election winning seats are joining, meaning the 2020 election results were completely ripped off from this scenario if we continue doing this. So apart from this, this is why the election campaign happenings against election campaigns are happening across the whole nation. And even with or without us, people will keep doing. Even with or without funding from any groups or any governments, people will keep striking. So that's the reality of the Myanmar situations right now. We can't stop it anymore. And we already are seeing, even if the future we are looking at is not that clear enough, but we are sure the past wasn't for us. So that determination kept us going. So apart from this, we are now joined not just by our own friends, we are joined by soldiers. Now the soldiers are leaving their military. The police are also deciding not to kill us anymore. And the police and soldiers, 15,000 soldiers are registered with NUG that they are defectors. But the number of deserter, prisoner of war is rising. It's rising. They are losing ground, they're losing morale, they're losing capacity, they're losing ability to control the nations. Meaning these soldiers want a desperate reform of their own institution. It's not just us, it's not just people, it's not just activists wanting military reform. Soldiers, they knew it too well. They are also violated inside the military institution. Now they are revealing all their stories of human rights violation inside military compound with us. And these soldiers are now contributing to the movement where we can build a stronger security setters. So with this, I have a report with me. It's called Out with the Old, In with the New. It's an insight from the military defector. We published it in 2024 in October. We compile all of the insights and recommendations from the military defectors. And they are also publicly available. Key insights from the panel that we organize. So they are voices. We are now having an inclusive dialogue with the soldiers, defectors. And we integrate their voices. We're not leaving anyone behind. We are helping their family. We are helping soldiers and their family do a better job. So thank you so much. I will stop here.
Thanks. Thanks very much, Shunlei. That put the position very well. I think also, if you want to hold that report up again, I know you do have, she has a fairly small number, maybe about 20, for people who are actually very interested in the defector movement and the issues involved. So you can see her afterwards if you would like one of those. And I think you raised many issues, and we'll come back to those in questions. But I would just like to ask you one thing, which is that I think there's been a lot of debate in the resistance, which is so diverse that you've got ethnic armed groups, you've got civil society, you've got People's Defence Forces, all kinds of resistance. Is there unity and agreement in urging ordinary people to boycott and not vote, even if they're going to be targeted by local administrators on election day, probably, if they don't vote? we can imagine the junta is so desperate that, you know, they'll probably send people around. I don't know, they might do the ink thing. I don't know what they did in 2020, but before that they were checking if people had voted. So how does the, you know, is there agreement amongst all the different groups you are coordinating about what you advise people?
So we, as a group, we consulted with the people on the ground. They are the ones who say they will keep resisting the election plans. They don't want that to happen in their territories. If the junta can organize in their territory, that's a failure of their revolution. So they are trying to take over places, capturing more towns to ensure that the junta cannot organize election in their territory. So that's what they're trying to do. Basically because they just don't want the junta authority to say especially the politics. They don't want them to say it politics. They don't want them to have a role in politics. The people will have a voice on that. So as a group, we are nonviolent political defiance, political resistance groups. So we don't encourage people to destroy or to kill or, you know, all these kind of things. But what we are doing is to ensure that these people are informed, and persuade people from different sectors to ensure they know what they're doing, and they are informed on what our strategies are. So definitely when people are pressured to go to the polling station, nobody can stop them. It's not fair just to, you know, put them in pressure that people have to go in, because at their gunpoint they have to go and do it. But what we've been saying is, even if you are under pressure and you have to do what the junta told you to do, they can't take away your spirits. You just have to do it because for your own survival. But they can't take away your spirit, your own revolutionary ideology, meaning they can still be resisting in that point, like where they are forced to go to the polling station. They can report. They can document the cases. They can tell people what their experiences are about. And this is how they can still be a part of the resistance. You know, many people in Myanmar, they are under a lot of pressure. They are supposed to pay and this. They are supposed to flee because the junta is conscripting. When people are poor, they are conscripted right away. They have no other options. But we are saying to these conscript, don't lose your spirits. Even if you are brainwashed by the junta at gunpoint, don't forget that. You are still people. You are still represent the young people, and that, you know, this is how we are messaging
at
to
this
our
point,
people.
The SAC has even admitted they only control maybe 161 of 330 townships to be able to have elections. What's your sense of how many voters they could actually pull out on election day?
We are also looking at that data because 161, they just say it, but they don't say which township.
That's right. It could be a township with like 200 people in it.
Yeah, we don't know. We don't know. So we are.
But are you sensing it's 30%, which some people estimate it could be 30% of voters?
Could be, because now things are slowly evolving. Things could change when the election's near. More township are captured or like.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes, there's still a long time to go. It's only February. We're talking about November probably. Anyway, let's turn to Kun Siasak now and get the international perspective. And also, on this, we will come back to the issue of elections, but you know very well, and Thailand knows very well, that this is going to be a moment for regional countries, neighbours, and all those who are engaging with Myanmar, whether you accept, recognise the election results, so on and so on. So over to you. Please speak right into the microphone.
Thank you. It's a pleasure for me to be here. I don't come to the FCCT that often, but tonight I was coerced by Gwen.
His human rights were violated. He's complaining.
And actually, Gwen wanted me to speak first today. But I think I should defer to my colleagues from Myanmar, because it's all about the people of Myanmar. And it's about the aspiration of the people in Myanmar. And, you know, for Thailand, as the neighboring country, as a retired diplomat, and I was vice minister. I think, peace in Myanmar has to be worked out by the Myanmar people themselves. But that doesn't mean that the neighboring countries, we in ASEAN, China, external partners can help facilitate the peace process. But the reality that confronts us is that the situation is much more complex than before. When the coup happened 4 years ago, I remember telling myself that you cannot turn back the tides of democracy or the tides of history. And so obviously, I don't think the military anticipated that things would turn out this way. Right? But I think it's very important for us how to think of the best pathway to peace, because I don't want to be sounding callous, but I don't think we really should have a military solution to the situation, because a military solution would, first of all, entail greater costs and more suffering to the people of Myanmar. And so how can we seize every opportunity to achieve some pathway towards peace, even the smallest opening, right? Now, I feel that the dynamics in Myanmar is changing. It's changing because of the situation on the ground. It's changing because the proposal by the SAC to have election, which of course, if it's organized the way that the SAC plan to do, it's not going to be credible. But I think we should also look at whether there is an opening for peace, for some pathway towards peace. Even though it's a small opening, maybe we can help to shape that opening towards some kind of a dialogue process. But my real frustration is that ASEAN has been talking a lot and doing nothing. I can be very frank, because I know ASEAN. And sometimes we always hide behind this principle of non-intervention, non-interference. But in this day and age, and given the growing interdependence of ASEAN, what is internal, what is external, it's difficult, to draw a clear-cut dividing line. But sometimes it becomes an excuse for inaction. But when we talk about intervention, like in the case of Myanmar, it's not intervening to undermine the situation in Myanmar further. It's intervening to help the country of Myanmar, the people of Myanmar, out of a very dire situation towards some kind of a peace process. So ASEAN has to really do more than pay lip service to, to the 5-point consensus. Every time we have a meeting, we hear two things. We reaffirm our support for the 5-point consensus, adherence to the 5-point consensus. We support the role of the special envoy, and that's it. And so ASEAN hasn't had a concrete strategy to implement the 5-point consensus. ASEAN has not given the special envoy the kind of mandate that he needs so that he can negotiate or that he can facilitate or whatever. And I think the starting point when we're talking about helping to bring peace, we cannot impose peace on the people of Myanmar, but we can facilitate a peace process. And so the starting point begins with ASEAN. And so what we have to do is really, rather than just talk, we have to walk the talk. I think that's very important. And the special envoy. The special envoy is not the ASEAN special envoy. It is the envoy of the chairman of ASEAN. And the term is 1 year. And so what happens is that the special envoy, and this is starting with Brunei and then Cambodia and Laos, is each of the special envoys begins his mandate, not her because so far it's been all male special envoy, with being very enthusiastic. But after 6 months, he finds that he probably cannot do much because he doesn't have the full support of ASEAN behind him. And then, so the last 6 months is like just trying to survive, not just trying to survive, but just trying to go through the motion. So maybe the starting point is to have a real ASEAN envoy, someone with the sufficient stature to write his or her own talking points and mandate. And I think that's very important. And also to be a collective effort. Why does it have, it should not be just one special envoy. When we had the initial discussion on the appointment of the ASEAN special envoy, the Thai position was that maybe it should be 3 special envoys helping each other because there are many responsibilities for the special envoy. And so maybe if we have an ASEAN special envoy, he or she should be supported by senior diplomats to carry out the tasks of the special envoy because there are so many things to do. You have to coordinate among ASEAN, you have to coordinate with neighboring countries, you have to work with the UN, you have to work with the external partners like the United States. You cannot expect one special envoy to do all these tasks. I'm trying to be very practical now, And then when we talk about the special envoy normally is a senior career diplomat. But sometimes we need the political push. So we have the Troika. The Troika should, at the foreign ministers level, the Troika should work collectively. Let's say to talk with China. That, how do we really achieve, real peace in Myanmar? How do we work towards a credible election, inclusive election? So I see these things as being important to push towards the peace process in Myanmar. So the elections may not be the solution. It may be a sham, as you said, but in a way it could be, and I'd like to hear your views on this. Could it be an exit strategy? Could it be? I mean, definitely the SAC is not willing to give up power. But at the same time, they know that it's also impossible to hold on to power, right? So, but we know that we cannot accept any exit strategy that is not preceded by dialogue, that is not inclusive. And then the other question I have is that, can it be an entry point for dialogue? But this entails the resistance to be prepared for dialogue also, because right now, I don't think the resistance have really coordinated among themselves on what they want to see when you talk about a dialogue, right? What are the conditions for a dialogue? What are the talks needed to have talks? So my point is that I guess we really have to think about the pathway towards peace. Is this an opportunity, or is this just something that is wishful thinking? Is it something that can happen? Can we make it happen? And so at least 2025 could be a very important turning point. The elections could lead to more instability, or it could perhaps, if we work together, be a small opening that we can work to make it a bigger opening and perhaps shape a process that could lead to some kind of a starting point for dialogue. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Khun Siasak. You raised a lot of points that I know we'll come back to, but just one quick question was, when you say inclusive election, I've asked you this before, but, you're talking about inclusive. To us, to a lot of people would mean you're trying to get groups that are currently opposed to cooperating with the SAC involved. Is that what you mean by inclusive? And also, even I think when you were part of the administration, Thailand was excluding some resistance, like, for example, particularly the NUG and others that are part of the resistance from any kind of dialogues or efforts that, you were trying to engage the SAC or talk to them, make some sense of them. So could you just maybe elaborate on the use of the word include? Sorry, don't look at me like that.
Well, are we talking inclusive in an ideal sense? Okay.
Well, I'm wondering
if we talk about inclusive in an ideal sense,
yeah.
Yes, before you have the election, there must be inclusive dialogue, right? Everybody has to talk about elections, how it's going to be organized, about the future of peace in Myanmar. And that's the ideal situation. But it could also be, sorry if I sound like a diplomat, but there could also be some semblance of inclusive, where it could be the starting point for further dialogue. And I think we're realistic enough to know that one election will not solve all the problems in Myanmar. And even with an inclusive election, perhaps the problems in Myanmar will not be solved. I think you understand what I'm saying. So let's maybe even after the election, if there is a dialogue process after all, because there's so many issues that they have to talk about. Among the opposition, do they agree on the future of Myanmar? That's right. So perhaps if the election is credible enough, if the election has a clear roadmap on where you're going, if the election is a very important point in that transition of Myanmar, because the situation is not like 2010 or 2015, no more. There are so many actors now. So that's what I mean by, I'm not talking about inclusive in the ideal sense, because I know that it won't happen. Yeah. But I know that there's a need for dialogue. The dialogue has to be before the election, because the elections cannot be held. The dialogue will have to be after the election, because then the election will not be sustainable if there's no dialogue. So I see it that way. But Thailand, as the neighboring country, we have to try to facilitate as much as we can. And if ASEAN can really get our act together, and if China is willing to align itself with ASEAN, because everybody says that we support ASEAN. The United States says it supports ASEAN. China says it supports ASEAN. But every country is intervening in its own way now. So ASEAN will really, we have to work collectively, getting China, United States, and other Japan external parties on board, and seeing and trying to forge a consensus on what do we want when it comes to peace, stability in Myanmar. I remember when I was a junior diplomat, Cambodia, the Cambodians could never have achieved the peace unless the external countries supporting the 3 or 4 factions thought it was time to bring the conflict to an end. And so I think that it's very important that first of all we be pragmatic, think about how to achieve a pathway towards peace. And I've met with the opposition, try to listen to what they say. All the major ethnic groups are in Chiang Mai. Everybody knows that. I've had talks with them, and I told them in good faith that they should not dismiss the election yet. Because if you dismiss the election, this is an opportunity for you to engage and say what you want to see in the election. But if you dismiss the election entirely from the very beginning, maybe we lose this opportunity for dialogue. And so that's my feeling. Right. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll come back to elections, I'm sure. There will be time for questions after this. So turning now to Tozolat. To, I know you've got a range of views on a range of things, but maybe focus a little on, and also something we haven't discussed, but I think a lot of people in this room, if you're working on or with Myanmar or Myanmar-related programs, the big shock of the week has been the US complete shutdown of funding and support for a lot of programs, including, I think, the Myanmar independent media has been hit very badly, not to mention serious humanitarian operations, hospitals, refugees, IDPs, support along the border. So I'm sure you have some thoughts on that as well. But anyway, over to you. You've got some excellent points.
Minglava, Sawadika. Yes, I don't want to start with the bad news about USAID, but I want to start with election. I'm sure there will be no election in 2025.
At all? At all,
because we are journalists, we don't speculate, I will talk about factual things. There are only 145 townships able to done census. Current military government, there was a coup 4 years ago, insisting that there is a election rig, and basically because of census, voter list is incorrect. And then suddenly General Myanmar figured out that Burma is only 51 million people, 3 million missing. In 2040 census, there was a 54 million. That is a factual that he was spelling out that, there is no 3 million. I don't know where 3 million gone. You are not joining the PDF or this figure is by General Myanmar. He's saying that, the election commission said only 145 townships, they have census. And also Burmese entire population is, it is declining 3 million back. And also another reason that they don't want to admit is they have like 161 townships. So what about the rest? So they don't want to admit that the rest of the township is not under their control. So that's why, but although Myanmar officially, he extended another 6 months, insists that he want to organize proper election. That was his excuse. But there will not be election in 2025, but maybe in 2026. And also, don't forget, this election is not Burmese driven. It is the Chinese driven, because the Chinese want it. At least they want to, a kind of face-saving or a kind of legitimate government that they are dealing with. So that is also, not going to be realistic for 2025. So these are the first point. And second point, after 4 years, let's look at the Burmese army. Burmese army, I never see Tamaro. They are very lowest morale, and 94 townships lost to various ethnic groups. You name it, like Three Brotherhoods, mainly in the north, and next to China border. Some people, TNLA 11 township, and also Kokan, Amati, and look at in the Bangladesh border, or Karen, or even Anyuji have a 8 township. So these are the fact that, there is a very obvious territorial loss. And also 2 days ago, one of the diplomats came from Yangon, and then in front of him, one lady was pulled out of the plane because they are having serious shortage of manpower. So in Yangon, even daytime, there is a kind of forced conscription. Now they're going to recruit women for this batch. So there will be more girls and women running away. So no more young people aged between 18 to 35 years allowed to live legally. So they are desperate. Although these, forced recruitment, militarily, they keep losing it. If you look at, in Kachin or Rakhine. So I don't think these newly recruited people are not capable. This is one of the key army challenge. And also, if you look at their reshuffle, recently, I don't remember how many times SSC reshuffle, at least 40 times. And recently, even including the interior minister, already 3 ministers, one is in jail. And reshuffle, these are the very important positions or within SSC, very, very unstable administration. So these are the stage of army. So this loss is not temporary setback. I think it's going to remain until this year. And there will be more, very likely to have more territory lost. Let me touch a little bit on ceasefire. A lot of people don't know what is going on with ceasefire that broke up in Chinese. Because all the officials talking is Chinese, none of them like Gogan, they're not saying anything. So what happened is with these three brotherhood, the Chinese broke a ceasefire is like that. Chinese talk one by one with like Gogan, AA, and TNLA. They schedule one on 2 weeks time, maybe around 15, and one on this February. What they are doing is they are bilaterally negotiating with the different ethnic group, not as an entire three brotherhoods. One by one with Kokan, one with AA, and then they negotiate with the SSC, and then they come back to their ceasefire. And there is a joke. If there is AA, Arakanese army, meet with Burmese army, they will tell Burmese army, just give her only 3 townships left, there is no point keep fighting because there is only three townships remain in entire Rakhine. So these are the facts. And also SSC don't want to recognize those lost territory as an autonomous region. So they basically, they're getting nowhere. It seemed like from the outside, the ceasefire is working. Like Ajahn said, at least, a small opportunity for peace. I don't think it's going to happen. And, and the Chinese, I don't know what they're going to do. ASEAN do nothing. In contrast, Chinese is doing everything. So election is driven by Chinese, and also this ceasefire is driven by Chinese. The reason is because they want to resume their trade. All the border trade, including Thailand, Bangladesh, India, China, they all gone. Apparently, the General Sowen, number 2 after May Online, he is in charge of all the economic affairs. He is saying that we need to crack down all these illegal goods. Why? Because it is actually financing all the resistant groups, mainly ethnic groups, because of all resistant control all the border trade at the moment. So these are the facts. Because it's linked with the lost territory. I don't know how Thailand going to respond. Thailand don't want to reopen the Asia highway, but it's stuck. It's because of, I don't know what if KNU overrun Myanmar then, whether Thailand will do trade-in agreement with KNU, I'm not sure. About these, these are all linked with the lucrative border trade fall into resistant group that able to finance somehow. So the SSC is seriously cracking down, insisting that these are the illegal goods, basically because of profiting the ethnic groups are profiting out of that. And for this year, I can predict there will be more violence and more fighting. Will be concentrated more in the middle. Because of Arakan, there is only 3 townships. Arakan, now they are moving to Magwe. Why Magwe? Most of the military heavy industry, including Wazi, where they bring Burmese currency, is in Magwe. Magwe is border with Arakan. So Magwe is also very strong PDF, and also NUG a lot of energy, a lot of movement. Now going to Makwe. Makwe also there is a Labaka. Labaka is 11 Central Command. And also just a Mataratai, the Northern Command in the Kogan. In the KIA, they're going to force them because the Pomor is gone. Pomor is a strategic area. Militarily, I mean, they keep losing all these strategic important posts. So, I mean, 2025, I can predict that there will be more fighting concentrated on those, very lucrative strategic supply route or area that AA will collaborate. So there is a lot of question about whether opposition unite. I don't think they are not unite, but they unite in terms of military operation. All these success without coordinated, military fighting, they don't get this far. But they are still not very united in terms of territory, also human resources. I mean, they don't know how to do how to control. There is no capable staff in their area, apart from using CDM, doctors, nurse, teachers. And they are asking, help them to set up the proper media policy, radio, television, asking television in their area, because they don't have a human capacity. So that is also another fact. And also for 2025, it's also very crucial for NUG and UCC, because this is the fifth year, about the legitimacy. 2020 election, you see, it is already, it's not perpetual power. It is, only 5 years. So what are they going to do? Also, how do they going to reform inclusive, especially with those ethnic leaders who control life, who actually controlling the territories? So my last point is, how about saving people? There are 3.5 million IDPs, and 18 million people needed the humanitarian. And Thailand and ASEAN also. 5 points is, not only other politics. 1 point is about humanitarian assistance. How do we find the way? And also linked to USAID. I mean, also it's impacted a lot of media houses, mainly independent media houses, and also humanitarian activities. It somehow pushed toward Chinese, dependency as well, because if there is no U.S. sponsor, like refugee, medical, AIDS, media, and there will be vacuum. This is globally they are arguing. Chinese next door to Burma, they will happily take over all this space, for sure. These are all my point. Thanks.
Thanks, Tao. You raised some very key issues, which I know we'll come back to very soon. So, lastly, for this first round, we'll turn to you, Janata. I know you are wearing a number of hats, but including the new Catalyst Economics, where you and partners are looking at some of the economy. We've not heard much on that, but we do know, and we all saw the World Bank came out with its most recent report, which lowered, it had predicted, I think, even say 1% growth this year, but it's lowered that so to basically it'll be 0%, no growth at all, which actually is a further backsliding for Myanmar. It does look catastrophic, but it has to be said that 0% at least is a holding. It's actually quite surprising that even exports are holding up much better than feared, and that's due to the resilience of extraordinary people, including in one of the most bombed states, Sagaing, where they're still managing to produce rice, I don't know how, and getting it out, and it's being shipped out, an agricultural product is being shipped out from Yangon ports, and trade has borne up better than people thought. So I'm sure you have some thoughts on both economy and your work trying to promote what you say is understanding of Myanmar. So let me turn it over to you.
Great. Thank you, Gwen. Delighted to join once again here. I think the World Bank report lays out more or less the details. You've seen an overall contraction in the economy. They've reduced their expectations. The UNDP report that also followed not long after provides... Hi, can you hear me?
Close to the mic.
It's directional. Yeah.
Right, got it.
So can
Provides a
can
picture.
You rewind a little bit?
The World Bank report is
Hold on.
is fairly comprehensive in its assessment. There's an overall decline in the economy. I was just mentioning the UNDP report describing the situation as a poly-crisis. I think also fleshes out a fuller picture, not looking only at this year and the past year, but really since the coup Myanmar faces, all the effects of that have followed from the heels of the coup, including conflict and the effects of conflict, including the large-scale political oppression happening inside the country, including not just a war-affected economy, but really a war economy driven from Naypyidaw, but now also with a lot more emergence and divergence across different parts of the country. Overall, from the beginning of the coup until today, it's been, I think, a 9% contraction in the GDP, with probably more than 50% of the townships under some form of active conflict. You mentioned 3.5 million, Godot. I think when you were saying 7 as the estimate for internal displacement. The figure I have is more from the Thai side, and I was hoping to ask Khun Siasak what the Thai estimates of the Myanmar, the upsurge in the Myanmar population is, because the figures I've received dwarf both those numbers. And you have Naypyidaw, you have a Naypyidaw regime, and I think that is probably the accurate term. Myanmar is contested. I think we have to come to terms with that. You have a very, you said everything I was going to say about the elections. The question for me about the elections are not whether they are valid, which they're not, or not, but rather whether they would take place at all, whether they serve Mae Online's interests rather than the SAC. And nothing indicates that there is actually any real interest despite Chinese encouragement, unprecedented Chinese support for elections. The international concern, and this is where I think it's not just the member states of ASEAN and China, but also actually in the West, right? There's an overwhelming fear of state failure, collapse, and fragmentation. But the assumption that this can be prevented via Naypyidaw, I think, is out of date and perhaps a little bit misguided. I know we come thinking about solutions, and I think there is pressure to think about solutions. Ultimately, are elections the solution for Myanmar? Ultimately. But the path to get there, I think, is you know, it involves many preceding steps. Khun Siasak, you mentioned dialogue. Godot, you mentioned the need for international support. A lot of these things can be enabled by neighboring countries. It can be enabled if China would like to, and China definitely holds many cards. But it can also be enabled by ASEAN member states, and I think we give a lot of credence to this effort over the past few years to create some kind of ASEAN institutional continuity on Myanmar, where it's not beholden to whichever chair happens to be at the top. And the Troika, perhaps a potential expansion of the Troika, these are all positive steps. I think of a few things that can be done. As I mentioned, if China will not provide the political space, this is something that ASEAN and ASEAN member states can step into. If I remember correctly, the Prime Minister of this country last year voiced support and a willingness to enable political dialogue. Dialogue is key. Dialogue has to be phased. Dialogue has to be sequential. at the point in time when the relevant actors want to engage in dialogue, they can be invited in. At the moment, there is willingness for dialogue. There is efforts despite the logistical challenges. And you know, this has been an era of numerous innovation. I think Myanmar has really hacked the idea of what it means to be a state, what it means to be a government, how we can attempt to achieve understanding of each other. I'm not to promote myself here, but we've seen this take place in novel ways, despite all the challenges of security, physical access, finances. This is really a people-financed, crowd-funded, self-organized, even if disparate, political movement. The gaps that we see in service delivery, governance is such a complicated topic, but there are obvious gaps in service delivery. Thank you. Sorry. There is neither the capacity nor the will to push out service delivery from Naypyidaw. Thailand has seen the effects of this, as have other countries, when it comes to not just the physical outflow of people fleeing conflict and economic hardship, but it's also seen this in other ways through the spread of infectious diseases along the border. I think it's the first time since 2018, over the past few years of the coup, that you have seen not COVID, but the resurgence of drug-resistant strains of malaria. These are not just issues for Myanmar and Thailand, these are issues for the world. Notwithstanding the challenges on global health, in terms of addressing it, you have an emerging problem. So thinking less of the immediate political solutions and then filling in gaps, I think, and enabling the filling in of gaps are things that can be proactively done. Again, in the interest of Myanmar, but also actually in the interest of neighboring states. ASEAN has, to me, more weight than is acknowledged. I am fundamentally a skeptic, but I also want to give credence to efforts, right? And various chairs in the past few years have provided space, have enabled discussion. It's a shame that it's, you know, every time we switch the chairmanship, there's a whole new process of how do you call onboarding, really. But hopefully these new mechanisms, the Troika plus, and as we come, hopefully we don't have to go full circle through all the member states before we arrive at consensus within ASEAN on top of the 5-point consensus. There are things that ASEAN can also do, that ASEAN has leverage in terms of according relevancy, right, to the relevant actors. Recognition, legitimacy, these have become such sensitive, contested terms. But ASEAN can recognize there are relevant actors, newly relevant actors, as well as long-standing relevant actors. If anything, the challenge to the stability and the security of a member state of ASEAN, that challenge emanates from Naypyidaw. How you address that challenge inevitably will require, in some way, engaging with, enabling, perhaps supporting the actors that can be part of a solution. The role of ASEAN can also be in terms of thinking of what comes next, right? And thinking of what comes next is very difficult when even the things that we assume are going to happen, such as these elections, are now very much in doubt. I completely share that belief. If I am not wrong, for elections to take place, there needs to be a body of electoral rules that the SAC and Mail Line needs to issue at some point. Until that happens, I'm not so convinced that there is any real intent. So if we can't know what is coming next. Can we plan? And I would argue, no, maybe that's even more reason to plan for a future. And what kind of Myanmar we may be looking at in a year from now, we don't know. We can imagine what kind of Myanmar. There are only a number of possible Myanmars that can emerge in the next 10 years. And one of the things, my personal crusade is to try to get different actors, domestic and international, to think through that lens and plan for that kind of possible futures, aspired futures. Do we see the military being part of the equation? Do we see mainline part of the equation? I think the hurdles that face governments in the region become much less present when we allow ourselves to think 10 years ahead. There is no viable future for mainline, right? I don't think that is a partisan statement. There is very little reason to see this military in its present form unilaterally hold the keys to a stable and secure and prosperous Myanmar. And I think we have to untangle ourselves from those assumptions and begin to identify and work with those who may be part of that possible future. I'll stop here. Thank you.
Well, thanks, Nyanta. That's interesting that 2 of the 4 of you think that elections probably will not happen. That's interesting because it also leaves the scenario. The title of this panel tonight was whether the ground could shift in Myanmar this year. Part of the reason for that question was because the one really different thing was this all probability that some people feel is a probability, mainly because China is so keen that some form of election will be held which will move the needle. The other thing that has changed, I think, is Thailand's increasingly proactive stance. So whether you liked it or not, the willingness and the effort to do this rather odd double-header meeting in December to, first of all, invite ASEAN's, which largely were not thrilled, and then the neighbouring countries of Myanmar in a separate meeting to be met by the SAC's ostensible foreign minister, who pitched the elections to them, that is Bangladesh, India, Thailand, Laos, and what's the 5th one? Anyway, yes. So there was that, and I think that shows a willingness now for example, Thailand to, go out there on a limb and take some matters into its own hands. That could also provide some kind of further opening. I'm not saying it's positive or negative. In fact, so far it's negative because Thailand has refused to include any of the real, what we'd call resistance or opposition, including EROs and, of course, the NUG. So it could hardly be called inclusive in any form at all. But it did put something out there on the table. So that could provide some shifts this year. There are various other things that are going on. And I'm sure the audience out there, some of you may have questions, so I'm not going to hog the microphone anymore because we've only got another 20 minutes or so. So if you would like to ask a question, the microphone is there, and please identify yourself. And if you want specific speaker, do that, or if you want to throw it to the panel, I think they're all grown-ups and can work out who should answer the question.
Yes, thanks, Gwen, and thanks. It was a great panel. I really appreciate it. My name's Larry Gores. I'm a club member here. And I think what you were getting at the end, that Thailand, the possible change in Thailand's approach in 2025 is perhaps what we should be looking at most of all here. The idea that ASEAN is going to come to a consensus on this issue, I think, is hopelessly unrealistic. I think on the Myanmar issue in ASEAN, their slogan should be expect nothing and you won't be disappointed. As far as dialogue is concerned, dialogue generally is a good thing. Scott Marciel, the former US ambassador to Burma, who is a lifelong diplomat and who believes in dialogue, has said, unfortunately, the SAC is not a reliable or reasonable dialogue partner. It is hopeless to expect success if you engage in dialogue with the SAC. And I think that that's probably a good point. So I hope to see Thai policy become more realistic and less focused on pipe dreams. I gotta say, cannabis is legal here now, but that's not a good way to make policy. Thailand benefits from stability on the other side of the border, and yet its policy is to support the people who are dropping 500-pound bombs on schools, helicopter gunships shooting children running from a bombed school. That's creating instability, and that's where the millions of Myanmar citizens who are here in this country, that's where they're coming from. So that now that Thailand is finally under pressure for facilitating the scam centers on its borders, I think that perhaps in 2025 we will see a change in Thai policy on Myanmar that will become more realistic, more actual focused on Thai interests. And I wonder whether anybody agrees.
Right. Good question. And should we start with our Thai representative? Sorry.
Well, I agree that Thailand has to step up to the plate. And, when I was the vice minister, we thought, how do we do that? And the goal, first of all, is peace, stability, and a unified Myanmar. And for us, that can only come through a genuine process of dialogue and reconciliation. But that's easier said than done. What is the pathway? And so that's why we started with this humanitarian initiative. It was insignificant because we did, a small amount of cross-border delivery, but it was significant in terms of the symbolism behind that, because we had to talk with the SAC, open up the border. This is your opportunity to re-engage with ASEAN. We had to talk with the ethnic groups because they were not happy that we were working with the SAC, but we had to start from somewhere. And we hope that we could expand the space for humanitarian assistance, and this was one way of getting the 5-point consensus implemented. And we hope that maybe this could evolve to a dialogue. But we found out one thing, is that the problem was also at home, where we needed better coordination within the agencies in Thailand, because Myanmar policy is not up to the foreign ministry alone. It's a matter of national security. It concerns, the human rights, humanitarian assistance, and all that. And so we thought that we had to really get our act together. And I think we're now trying to come up with a comprehensive policy on Myanmar. But, I think that Thailand, when you're next door, you have this, what we call the burden of proximity. I don't think, at least as far as myself is concerned, no wishful thinking at all. Right. We're not thinking that, can this, we're not hoping, but how do we achieve, the pathway towards peace? How do we achieve some kind of a dialogue? First, let me make it clear that an election that legitimizes the regime is not the way to go. Second, if we don't believe that China should just be pushing its agenda, because over the long term, the Chinese agenda is best served by real peace, sustainable peace in Myanmar. So right now, first of all, we have to ask the ASEAN countries, we really have to talk about what do we do. Thailand has to shape that discussion. Second, we have to go to see China and talk with the Chinese on, if you say that you believe in ASEAN centrality, you believe that ASEAN should take the lead, please let ASEAN take the lead. So what I'm trying to say is that there are so many things that in practical terms, what do we do? Mm-hmm. And so that's why I think it's important for Thailand to think, as you said, because Thailand can play an important role, we have to step up to the plate. We have to think in practical terms. What can we do within ASEAN? What can we do with neighboring countries? When I was the vice minister, we thought about this neighboring country meeting, but the idea was not to invite the SAC at that time, because with the SAC taking part in the meeting, it's to be expected that they would use it as a platform to promote their election. I thought that the purpose of the meeting with the neighboring countries was to better coordinate their position with ASEAN and talk about how do we speak with one voice? How do we really, support this peace process in Myanmar? How do we seize a small opening into a larger opening? So I was a little bit concerned when we had this meeting, and then it became more or less a platform for the SAC to talk about the election. And then, the impression was that Thailand was now supporting the election. And I think it's clear after the meeting in Malaysia that we want to see an inclusive election, and that it's not election alone that's going to solve the problem.
Mm. Thank you. I'd just like to follow up one very quick question. When you were Vice Minister and Kun Panpri was Foreign Minister, it was fairly clear who was being proactive in Thai foreign policy. You were out there, he was out there, you led missions up to the border. But now I must say we are all confused who is driving Thai policy on Myanmar, particularly now that you've got Mr. Thaksin on the board as an advisor to Anwar, the new Malaysian chair of ASEAN, and as well, Thailand has now revitalised this multi-agency task force. So you've got big elements of military and intelligence on the same committee as the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, etc. So it's actually, I think, very hard to work out who's making decisions on Thai foreign policy, on Myanmar.
Well, dealing with Myanmar, I learned one thing. It's very difficult to know who makes a decision.
In Myanmar or in Thailand?
Well, first of all, let's say in Myanmar first. Because it ultimately is the senior general. So somehow we really need to get to the senior general. That's it. And whoever can get to the senior general, I think that's an important channel of conveying certain messages. Okay. Now, whoever plays that role, if he or she, whoever he is, whether understand the dynamics, understand the concerns of the Myanmar parties, the opposition, the EAOs, the PDF, what are they seeking to achieve? It's not going to be an easy peace. It won't be achieved by the personal diplomacy of one particular person, really. Yes, we can, if it's a person with good connection being able to reach directly Min Aung Hlaing, to convey, concerns, our concerns to him directly. But that person has to understand the complexity of the situation in Myanmar. They have to represent the concerns of every party when it comes to peace in Myanmar. So I'm not commenting directly on the role of the former Prime Minister, but I think that it's important to get to the leadership, to be able to engage and maybe convey what is the thinking. Sometimes, maybe he doesn't know what is the thinking because nobody is conveying that to him. So if anybody can help to establish some links with the Senior General, I think that's good. Convey the situation as it is, and that person must understand the complexity, dynamics of the situation in Myanmar, understand the concerns of every party, and not just hoping to achieve a peace for certain, for his or her own popularity.
Right, so I'm assuming you're suggesting that person doesn't exist at this point.
Don't know. I mean,
Can you speak into the
I
mic?
had the chance to accompany a senior former Thai government official to see the Senior General. And the setting that we had was not the official setting. We were meeting in a small room. And in that small room, we learned a lot about Min Aung Hlaing, the man, and maybe he learned a lot about what's happening in the outside world that he's not getting from the officials who are around him. So I'm saying that, we have to think about pathways towards peace.
Right.
There are many things that has to be done, that's all.
Thank you very much. Do any of you want to say anything very quickly on the issue of Thailand?
Me?
Yes, very quickly.
Because Thailand thinking of switching off all the electricity
Yeah.
to the 5 particular area.
Well, if they have.
Yeah, and including Tachilek Mesai. It is happened only after SAC raised that, this comes and that is, powered by Thailand. Actually, we all know, internet and also power supply actually come from Thailand. And there is a contract. As a journalist, I saw a lot of contract, But only one SAC raised the issue about this scam center. It is specifically asking about scam center because it's also sent a lot of Chinese attention. And also it's very paranoid to some of the ethnic leaders like Sochitu, who is running the BGF. What happened to Kogan BGF in the China border? So it's also, there is a lot of impact on that, but sometimes I don't know why they wait. Thailand wait until SAC insists that, electricity is powered by the Thailand, and then, start thinking about it. I don't know whether it's going to happen or not, but at least it has to address these transnational crimes that happening on the doorstep that impact on everybody's.
Okay, yes, and that electricity issue is a further issue that complicates the Thai position, I must say, because clearly some arms of Thailand don't know what other arms are doing.
That's right. To be very frank, many of you have been to Mesot, right? The best way is to fly by Nok Air to Mesot. And you think of the composition of the passengers on each flight of Nok Air, and you'll be wondering why are they going to Mesot, right? So, for me, I think in a way, we should be very much aware of the problem.
What, you mean that it's full of Chinese?
The Thai side, what's happening.
Right.
We cannot deny a certain responsibility of what's happening.
Right.
And so I'm very glad that we had this meeting at the NSC about what to do about this.
National Security Council last year, you mean before you left?
No, we just had a recent meeting at the National Security Council on the 31st of January.
Yes.
We talked a lot about transnational crime.
Oh, you were there?
No, but a little bit I know what was happening.
You're still well informed.
But the issue of electricity came up. Who's going to, there has to be someone responsible, and the foreign minister who shared that meeting said, we will have something within 1 month. Maybe it's a little bit too long, but at least we will have something on this, the issue of
It's
electricity.
interesting he could time it to a month.
I don't, it should be shorter than that, but it's an issue that we are addressing
Right,
finally.
right. Thank you for those insights. I think we've got 2 more questions and we might leave it at that as it's 10 to 9. Phil?
Good evening. My name's Phil Roberts, and I'm an FCCT board member and the director of Asia Human Rights and Labor Advocates. I wanted to ask a question about the headlines we're seeing out of Washington, D.C., that foreign aid has been effectively frozen, and the impacts that it's having. We continue to see, like, for instance, the IRC hospitals are closed and the refugee camps on the Thai-Myanmar border. It's unclear whether Thailand is going to be able to take up some of that slack in terms of assisting. But also, USAID and others have provided significant assistance inside Myanmar, including on education and other issues, including for areas that are now no longer under SAC control. So my question to the panel, to all of you, is what is the impact going to be of the effective exit of the US government on issues related to Myanmar? Because it looks like Donald Trump and his team don't care very much about Myanmar and may not even know where Myanmar is.
Well, we know that, I think.
I mean, I think we should tell the present administration that we can do it even without the United States. Really, because we do have NGOs operating along the border, other countries who are willing to provide assistance. So, I mean, this is not the way to go. If you want even an America First policy, this is not the way to go. And so, what do? This is the reality. So we have to try to work with other organizations, because along the border, we have so many organizations, NGOs and governments who are willing to help in terms of humanitarian assistance. And I understand that this meeting on the 31st of January, we also adopted, some kind of comprehensive policy on humanitarian assistance, and not just on the part of the Thai government alone, but working with the other players on the border.
Right. Thank you. To, yeah, you want to say something?
Yeah, I just mentioned that there is a lot of impact on media industry, because before military, another coup 4 years ago, we were invited back to our own country. I was a TVB bureau chief. They invited us, and we went into our own country. We were able to make some commercial money, like a 50-50 operational cost. And then military coup again, then we don't have any other commercial income, and we are very much relying on donor and funding, and I think mainly Sweden, Scandinavia, and also USA. Now that one is gone. I mean, this is for the media. I mean, media not alone. There is a student studied at Chulalongkorn University, Chiang University. They seized that diversity and inclusive program, scholarship program, which is like 45 million. Elon Musk, he start to figure it out. Anything what, diversity, then he figure out, here we go. So there is a bigger impact on, Burmese community, like IRC, also, the students, media, but also it is a freeze for 90 days, but we don't know what will be after 90 days, but I don't see very good outlook. So I think I'm an ADA student, when we came 37 years ago as an exam, there is no USA at all. And so a lot of Burmese saying we are only way to rely on ourselves, because most of the Burmese resistance finance itself, mainly diaspora and people, donation, it's very weird. And then, we have to come back to look for other alternatives to respond to this crisis after 90 days, which is like April 25th. We don't know exactly what is the U.S. next policy. Entire USA going away, or dodge, DOGE, or make America great again, MAGA, or we are also not very clear. I mean, I by myself also, I mean, work as a consultant with the in the news USA funding program, and then so far we are start looking for alternatives. Start thinking, definitely not Chinese. For this vacuum, you know, we don't want any. I mean, if you go to KNU area, there is no Chinese. It's not that they don't want. Chinese want to come to that area because it's very lucrative and very interesting. Because some ethnic groups don't allow them. Only in the north. Right. Chinese are there. So I think maybe if there is no other choice, I don't know. But at the moment, after these 90 days, you know, we are also really looking for the solution. How can we, I mean, stand on our own feet to respond to this crisis?
Good point. Okay, look, we're really down to our final questions. So, yes, Kun Chalida, introduce yourself. And
I'm Chalida Thajaransak. I am the chairperson of People Empowerment Foundation. We are working for Myanmar so long time, from 1988 until right now. We support our brother and sister. I have 2 points to share with you. The first one about the role of the ASEAN, and also the second one is about the elections. The first one, of course, many of us, we cannot trust ASEAN, but we cannot leave ASEAN when we consider that UN can solve the problem of Myanmar. No. America can solve? No. EU can solve? No. China? No. Because China need interest inside Myanmar. They don't want to solve the problem of Myanmar. Only ASEAN that we can give some hope. But however, to make ASEAN to play important role to solve problem of ASEAN is very important. Kun Siyasak, you are my senior friend that I respect you a lot about the role of diplomat that you are doing in the past in international level, in UN and also in ASEAN. I would like to give my comment that the first thing that ASEAN would like to do, first, ASEAN should be neutral. Right now, ASEAN stand with SAC. You are not neutral enough. You are not support people of Myanmar. For us, the correct way to solve this problem is to stand with the people of Myanmar. You can see what is Chule said. Right. It's very powerful, the power of the people. If you still support and you said, okay, we are keep good relationship with the government, you cannot solve any problem with Myanmar. You should choose what side that you will stand for. For me, and this is for me that said neutral. Because neutral is mean that benefits of the people. So this is my comment that I give it to you to bring that to consult with the ASEAN member state to support Myanmar as a neutral and support for interests of the Myanmar people. The second point that I would like to raise.
Can you wind it up because we have to stop.
And also the second point about the election. Please don't support the election of SAC because it's been harm all of the Myanmar people, and also it's been harm all of us who support Myanmar issue. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Kun Chalida, for those points. And with that, I think I'd really like to thank this excellent panel. Unless any of you have any last burning point to make, I was going to make you all answer a simple question, but I don't think I will. Go on, Shunlei, you wanted to make one point?
Regarding the exit strategies that Ambassador has already raised about if the election could be an exit strategies, we thought a lot about it because if we ask who want to end the tragedies in Myanmar, it's the people of Myanmar. We want to end it right away. We desperately want it to end all of it. We are living it, we are experiencing it, so we want to stop it. But why we can't allow the sham elections as an exit strategy? Because it is not an exit strategy politically. It is an exit strategy for the generals to leave the room after all they have done, all the perpetrations, all the crimes they have done. So that will be an exit strategy for them, but not for the people, not for the country. So we think we should have an exit strategy. For us, that should be sustainable, long-term, and peaceful, and we're looking for it. And in this part, I think Thailand and all our neighbors can be a part of a solution. So definitely that's not the exit strategy, the sham election. So that's my last point.
Thanks very much. That's
can I
highly
say-
relevant. Yes.
Yes, Kun Chalida, you are right. We have to put the people of Myanmar at the center of our policy. That's it. You know, and you know, my concern is that when the coup happened, Thailand was so silent. We never said anything about the repression that is going on in Myanmar. Sometimes we have to speak our conscience, but at the same time, you know, how do we achieve peace? And when we talk about exit strategy, it's not exit strategy that is a free ride, definitely not. So I'm talking about an exit strategy that really embraces the aspiration of the people. And so we have to make it clear that election, the way it's going to be held right now, is not the way to go.
Right.
They cannot legitimize the regime. And I think they should be smart enough to know that it's not a way of achieving legitimacy.
You think they should be smart enough? Everything they've done in the last 4 years would suggest
Well,
they're not even smart enough.
yes, but it's easy to dismiss it like this. But I mean, if you're going to organize some election, you have to know that it has to be
Credible.
credible.
Right.
That's it.
Could you tell them that?
And we should be telling them that. We should be telling, and that we should tell the Chinese also. And I know the Chinese are not giving a blank check. Did you read the statement made by the spokesman of the Foreign Ministry? They said, we hope that there will be negotiations leading up to the election. Negotiation with the parties concerned. We know that they should know how to achieve a sustainable peace. So I think even the Chinese, they know that, well,
It's got to be credible.
it's not, there has to be some semblance of credibility.
Right.
And then maybe if there is some semblance of credibility, some basis for dialogue, we can continue that dialogue process.
Okay. Yeah, no, fair enough. Thank you. All right. Very
Actually,
final
it
point.
is only one comment that it is not resistance need exit strategy. It is a SAC and Myanmar need a serious exit strategy, not us.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's probably exit into some kind of emperor role. That's what he sees it as. But anyway.
Very quickly. There
All
are
right.
things that can be
Yes,
done.
yes.
Yeah. I think I understand it's difficult for Myanmar stakeholders to be able to travel to Thailand, right? Because as we all know, there are folks outside of the immediate country. There are those that are on the other side of the border. But the path to any solution requires the ability for people to talk to each other. So I think this commitment to dialogue that, if I understand, Thailand has expressed, I think it would be helpful to see it upheld, right? And this is not in any way an attempt to disrupt, but you have to, I think, the neighboring countries have to allow that space to exist. The second thing is, you're talking about, you were bringing up the scam centers and the provision of electricity. That to me, I'm not at all an expert on Thai politics, but what it signaled to me is there must be a way to get humanitarian assistance across the border if we can get electricity and internet across the border.
Of course.
Right?
Oh.
And what I look to is the various agencies and departments and ministries that have been involved. I think that's something that Myanmar stakeholders can also try to understand better. That is also what Thai stakeholders can try to understand better. And ultimately, as I said, this is in Thailand's interest as much as it is in Myanmar's.
Well, I think there needs to be more momentum on this, and you need people leading. So Thailand is masterful in obfuscating. You never know who's in the lead on any of these things. So yes, very good points. Thank you, and thank you to our excellent panellists. That was a great discussion. I hope you all agree. Thank you, everyone. Really good. And just one. There is a bunch of events. Please look at our website and Facebook. But more immediately, I notice there are a few journalists in this room. So on Thursday morning, UNICEF is going to present new data on the whole air pollution crisis, not just in Thailand, but Asia Pacific, at a press briefing open to all journalists. So keep that in mind if you're covering this appalling air pollution situation. And see you back here. Thank you very much.